Hello out there, and welcome to the No Shit Cast. I'm your host, Matt Frazier. Got a big old satchel full of the good stuff lined up for us today. A bag of the real stuff, I suppose. However you want to look at it. Sitting in the co-pilot seat as usual, my good buddy, Mr. Eric Smith, the Gray Wizard of historical knowledge himself. How you doing this evening, Mr. Smith?
Lemony fresh.
Lemony fresh, huh?
Yeah.
No, that sounds very, I don't want to say what that sounds to me, actually.
It's all there.
There's some things that are, believe it or not, that are best left behind the filter. So, quick update, folks. We were going to have Gareth on last Saturday and ended up running into some issues that I had to kind of cancel the show for. And luckily, Gareth has been good enough to agree to reschedule for this Saturday. So the show's back on. We're still going to do that and pull that off. It just kind of got to be a weird thing with some scheduling stuff and stuff that was going on. But so that show will be back. We will have that interview lined up, and I'm sure it's going to be a blast. Especially, I mean, what's funny is I just didn't realize how actually irrelevant talking to him was going to be about the subject matter that we were going to talk to him about. But man, this thing is like blowing up on the internet right now, bro.
Yeah, it's just something else, man.
I mean, we're talking about the whole phenomenon now that is the social media storm behind storming Area 51 is what I'm referring to. And
Stormtrooper 51.
So I had Gareth lined up, Samuel, because he was going to come on and we were going to talk about some of the physics claims that Bob Lazar was making in his podcast about, the stuff he supposedly worked on back in, what was it, like the 80s or whatever it was. And the podcast that he did on the Joe Rogan Experience and the documentary subsequently that was it's on Netflix right now that you can kind of go watch. So I just thought it'd be kind of interesting given, we have access to someone like a physicist and he's a really, super nice guy to boot. But so that was sort of the premise of what we're going to do the show on. And now, well, damn, all hell's breaking loose, right?
It's something, man.
So this comes up, our first article of the day is from Lad Bible. And this is from 4 days ago, but alien expert Bob Lazar warns people not to storm Area 51.
It's a bad idea. I've seen some things.
Here's what's ironic is when this whole thing first started really kind of booming, I saw Rogan put a Instagram post out that said, that he was concerned. He was like, I think it might have had something to do with this in reference to the storming of Area 51. Yeah. And then subsequently, I saw today that they actually interviewed the guy that made that first Facebook post, Facebook group post, or created the group, whatever it was. He the guy that sort of started this whole thing with that post, and he was being told he had listened to the Joe Rogan podcast. And then created this post about storming Area 51 is what it all.
So it wasn't the documentary; it was the podcast.
It was Rogan's podcast, and he had, and then but like a couple days before this interview, Rogan had put up an Instagram post saying, I'm worried I might have had something to do with this, like creating this whole hysteria now behind this Storm Area 51 event.
Well, people make up their own minds,
No, I get
it's
that.
Not his fault.
Yeah, buyer beware, all that kind of shit. Yeah, I get it. But I don't think it means that it's his fault. I just think he means that he's been the catalyst that sort of kicked this off. And then the kid goes on and does a Skype interview with a news channel and pretty much admits that's exactly what happened. However, when he made the post, it was facetious. So remember when we were all geeking out, like, what the fuck is a Narrow-2 runner? We couldn't had to go look it up, right?
Yeah, so did we.
Well, that's what I mean when we were looking it up, right?
Yeah,
so when he said that, or when he put that in the post, he was putting that in the post to be silly.
Sure, yeah.
Not that he was being literal or thought any fanboys would be taking him serious and out there, So all that stuff about the guys that kick in the drywall, and and the runners and all of that, he was just joking, and it turned into this huge thing. And then he said when it hit like 500,000, views, then he got scared and he thought that at any time he was going to get a knock on his door. So he's been like freaking out. And he doesn't want to do anything with it because he's afraid if he takes it down, it's going to look suspicious, So, but he came out and admitted that this whole thing for him was just kind of a joke, and now it's turning into this huge thing.
Do you think that they'll show up?
Dude, I think at this point, I started watching interviews with the people that are in that area that own businesses and stuff in and around Area 51. I can't remember the name of the town, but it has like the little alien restaurant.
Roswell?
Yeah, Roswell. Why couldn't I think of that? Yeah, you'd think I'd know that. So anyway.
You do know that. I know you know that.
In hindsight. Anyway, they're doing like there's people out there that own big chunks of land and in and around these establishments, and they're doing things like getting permits to open up 30 acres of land so that they can have campers and places for people to park to come in. And there's going to be something like 4 live bands now have committed to come in, and they're turning it into like this giant raid.
Party at the government installation.
Yeah, they're going to it's like Burning Man raids Area 51 or some bizarre shit going on now, man. It's really weird, okay?
Yeah.
And then I'm seeing, I don't know if it's fake or not, but I've seen a lot of images of celebrities and things that have committed,
yes.
we're going to be there.
I've
we're
heard
coming.
That, yeah.
I'm like, please don't do this,
Like Kevin Spacey just got exonerated of the charges against him. And
what?
Yeah, I believe I've seen that. And
I didn't know that.
They dropped the charges, I believe. I think he was one of the people saying he was going to go out there.
Wow.
I mean, it just seems like the thing you would do to celebrate after that if you were Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, raid a government, top secret government, highly secure government facility.
Or at least watch people attempt to do it.
What could go wrong? And I did, the Illuminati folks, the higher ups at the Illuminati, right? They want me to make sure that I keep towing the line that this is a bad idea, and to not have people do this, right?
The government, anyone with a higher education. This is a bad idea, guys.
This is such a bad idea. So the article, Bob Lazar, an American physicist who claims to have worked with extraterrestrial technology at a shadowy U.S. military base known only as S4.
For now. They're going to blow that shadowy shit right out of the water. You watch.
Well, he's warned people against trying to get into Area 51. You might remember that more than 500,000 people have joined a Facebook event to storm the classified U.S. base in order to see what they've got hidden away in there. According to Lazar, that wouldn't be a great idea. In fact, he claims that the last bloke who tried to do it was shot dead. The U.S. military has got some pretty big guns, remember? Lazar took to Instagram to offer some friendly advice to the Storm Area 51 crowd. He said, quote, I have to comment on this Storm Area 51 thing. I do understand it was started as a joke by someone, but there are a number of people who are actually planning on showing up. This is a misguided idea. Area 51 is a classified research base. There are no aliens or alien technology located there.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like in the mountain beside it.
Yeah. He says the only place there was ever any alien technology was at Site S4, south of Area 51 proper. That was 30 years ago. S4 may have moved decades ago, or it's possible it's no longer being used for the project. I do not support this movement. The last time someone tried to get into Area 51, he was shot. This is not the way to go about trying to get more information. What is good is the interest in the subject, the science and technology. That is what would immediately change the world we live in. Okay, Bob, whatever you say.
It does sound reasonable.
Well, so if Area 51 isn't where they are keeping the saucer people, what exactly is the Site S4 of which he speaks? Well, according to Lazar, it was an even more secret base made up of aircraft hangars built into the mountainside south of Area 51. That's what you were saying. That's what he says in the documentary, right?
I believe so. That's what I remember.
Lazar claims that he was employed to reverse engineer technology that was discovered by the U.S. and taken to this top secret off-the-grid site. He's a pretty interesting guy, to be fair. Lazar claims that he has seen documents detailing alien activity on Earth that has been going on for a while. However, it is worth remembering that the scientific community is skeptical of his work, given that he presents his claims with little hard evidence. One thing he says is definitely true, though. It's not a great idea to try to storm military bases.
Yeah, I love how he phrased it, misguided idea. It's an idea, but you don't want to take it in this direction. It's like for a role-playing game or something, maybe. Like that's the direction you want to go in. The misdirection is actually showing up live and doing it. So
keep it in the fantasy world type thing, right?
Yeah, misguided idea.
So that'll be kind of cool, right? So that's what I mean. This has turned into sort of a phenomena all of a sudden. It's really, really gaining some sort of weird critical mass, or it's just my Facebook algorithm giving me what I want to see. I'm not sure.
I think that it is a shared communal joke / hoax. I believe that 90% of the people signing up for that, they don't have any intention of doing anything about that.
Yeah, they're just being silly, right?
Yeah, it's like, let's jump on the bandwagon. I'm not really going to do it, but I'll sign it. I mean, hell, I thought about signing up for it, and I know I wouldn't go if I did.
Yeah, I made it pretty clear right off the bat because you asked me, you're like, you want to go? I'm like, fuck no.
Right? Yeah,
go.
not really.
Not even anything to do with being at that military base.
Not for
in the
any
middle of the
reason.
desert.
Not if they all get shot. Not if they find aliens. Not to go down and get free beer from Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah,
they're supposed to be giving away free Bud Light to any escaped aliens.
Here's what the Illuminati told me. So what they're doing is, how like the temperature is getting really, really hot all across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing that on purpose. They're manipulating the weather.
Keep people away.
They're going to get it super, super hot, and then there's going to be all these pasty fuckers that have never really been in the desert that are going to come rolling out there, and they're going to think they're going to walk across miles of this desert in blazing heat, and it's just going to wilt them like a bunch of flowers, and then they're using that as kind of a deterrent to break anybody's will.
How hot, I wonder, is it there at that time of year?
In Roswell?
Yeah, like
we can see what the temperature in Roswell, New Mexico is right now.
No, I mean on September 20th. That's like fall, right?
Yeah, but it's the desert.
Yeah, I don't know how much we got to find out.
I'm going to look it up. I bet we can find out. We have the Google.
Yeah. What will the temperature be? What has the temperature been on average?
The problem is I'm typing with one hand. Okay, September 84 degrees, high, low of 56. Well, that's not going to work.
A little low, but not real high.
Son of a bitch. Well, that's why they're turning the temperature up so soon, because it's going. They have to get it real.
Good thing they're not going to Ohio this weekend.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, they'd be fucked if they
this
did
whole
that.
Week. Yeah,
Good
it's gonna
God,
be terrible here.
So. So that's going to be fun. Stay tuned, folks. We'll see what actually happens. I don't know, man. Like I said, I think it's turning into like this weird Burning Man for aliens, ancient alien
but
fans.
I don't think anybody really, I mean, I don't know. I bet a lot of people on the show.
I don't know.
I seen this, I seen this meme that strikes me as being very true. It said, as any person who's in a band knows, when your 50 friends tell you you're going to show up for your show, usually like 3 of them shows up and one of them doesn't have money to get in.
Yeah, something silly like that.
Yeah,
right?
like man, we're gonna go and see your show, man. Yeah, we'll be there.
And then they don't come.
Yeah, you don't see anybody see 3 people that
I think I saw that. It's like when 500 people say they're going to show up for a live event. 15 people are going to show up.
Yeah, I mean, really anything. Like it's a truism, right? Like it's D&D games, man. You got 9 people, 10 people. Yeah, we're all going to be there. Well, sometimes, but a lot of times, no. It's not no one's fault. That's just life.
It's just life. Yeah. Try to organize. Well, that's why I find that I seen that meme one time that said that they find the optimism of conspiracy theorists sort of cute, because anybody that's ever done project management knows you can't get
that much logistics going with nobody being in control.
And then everybody's going to keep a secret, and then, no one's going to spill the beans. When you have that, like something that big.
See, that's the best argument in my mind for why people may not have built the pyramids. because, if you were to try to organize that sort of shit today, it would just be madness. And it had to have been just as difficult back then. I mean, there might have been some things that made it easier and stuff, but like the project seems almost insurmountable today.
I heard a theory about that. Speaking of which, that I wanted to ask you. I've been really wanting to ask you about and just keep forgetting. I think I saw somewhere recently, and I think it was Robert Schoch, the guy from Boston University, that says the Sphinx is older because of the water wearing and
Robert
stuff.
Schoch and Anthony West, usually.
Yeah. Yep. And
those
so,
guys.
Maybe I'm misattributing this comment to him, or maybe I misunderstood what he was saying. So I want to preface that. But I saw him in an interview or something at one time saying that the pyramids, it's misunderstood how the pyramids were constructed, because the assumption is something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing all this bullshit, okay? So take that for the grain of salt. But that the assumption is that those pyramids were built as standalone structures all at once, when in fact what has happened is that they started as much smaller temples that were just sort of like shelled over and over and over again through multiple dynasties of leaders. So they grew in size and prominence every single time, but ultimately it's the interiors, and I guess they see this also in places in South America and other places too, where you'll see like there'll be a structure and then a much bigger outer structure, and then all the space in between is they just framed up like boxes and filled them with rocks and things.
That's correct of Mayan temples, but not Egyptian temples.
Well, okay, so has that ever been like explored as a subject matter? Has anybody ever come out and said, well, we've looked at this possibility and that's not it? Or is it one of them things that...
Well, it's a pretty well-known archaeological bit of information that's how the Mayan temples are. They did build structures, right over top, and then filled them in and stuff, and they have investigated that, but that isn't at all what it seems like most of the pyramids would. Certainly not the pyramids of Giza, were not like that at all. They were particularly laid out in a certain way to make certain rooms and certain shafts, and it would have been practically impossible to do that by building on top over time. You would have had... it's practically amazing that it is what it is, but you would have had to have designed it before it would have been what it is.
Right. Now, how do you feel about this sort of premise that the pyramids are not tombs and they've never found any mummies or anything inside them that would lead us to believe that they were actually tombs and that they're something else?
Well, I think that bears a bit more scrutiny. It's not an impossibility. Most of the pyramids were in fact used as tombs.
But not the Great Pyramids.
But they do kind of stand out not having anything in them like that. And they say it's because people robbed them and stuff. And possibly that's true because they are
but there's like no hieroglyphs in them. There's
there's none of that either. Yeah,
nothing like that. They're weird in that way. They're sort of different.
Yeah. I mean, they could have been used for something else. I don't know what. But I think that the reason why mainstream archaeology assumes that they were tombs is because all the other ones pretty much were.
Right.
But, it also could be that there was a point in time when they were all tombs, right? And they were getting robbed constantly by people in their own time period, right? Because they stood out, right? You could see them, hey, I know what that is. That's the dungeon. Let's go to the dungeon and get some treasure, sort of a thing, right? And there's probably not even monsters to be battled, maybe curses, but they would protect these tombs with spells and stuff, right? But it didn't really stop these guys from robbing.
It kind of
didn't
work, huh?
No, and then after a while, they started burying everybody in the Valley of the Kings, where you get the KV4.
Well, that's kind of the other thing I was going to sort of point at about, it's not like Egypt was beyond having multi-generational type of structures.
No.
They did it.
Yeah, they did.
The Valley of the Kings has multiple. That's why it's the Valley of the Kings, right?
Yeah. But my point is they put them in there because everybody was robbing the pyramids, right? So it could be that after that period that they just went inside of the pyramids at Giza, being that they were the largest and most prominent, like they may have memorialized them, right? Like they're obsolete for tombs, but they may have kept the best ones that they had because they recognized them as being a monument, right? And so they may have went in there and taken out all that stuff and cleared it all out, and all those hieroglyphs and stuff.
So it was a tomb, but then was subsequently sort of sterilized.
Yeah, and memorialized because they stopped using them and they had went out of date. They were anachronistic.
And you're postulating here. You're not saying
I'm just making a guess. Man.
Yeah.
I just know that at one point in time they stopped using pyramids because people were breaking into them too much, which makes sense, right? Anybody that would see one would know and would come back, and there's all these examples of it, right? And so at some point they started kind of hiding them and making them less inaccessible and collecting them together so they could be guarded and
I would think
right?
Grave robbing is probably the second or third oldest profession.
Yeah, maybe so. And
as long as there's been graves, you know.
But you know that was I would be hard pressed to believe that they would not recognize the Great Pyramid of Giza as being a national monument.
You mean the people of antiquity?
Yeah. I mean, and I use the word national really, really loosely in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Like not a what would be the term, man? A kingdom monument, how would you phrase it? There may not even be a nomenclature for what that might have represented. But
a monument belonging to the people of the of the kingdom.
Yeah,
some sort, right? What is that called?
I don't know.
It probably has some weird specific name.
It might, yeah, in some architectural book or something, you know. But I mean, I that's what I am guessing. At some point, they went in there, they cleaned that stuff out. They may have even erased the hieroglyphs if they could have, because those hieroglyphs would have been intended for a particular
Is it possible
pharaoh.
that the acids that they see evidence of inside these tombs that's what that's evidence of, is how they came in and sort of chemically erased everything? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be,
because I want to get and there's guys I want to talk to, like Christopher, what's his name? The guy that the pyramids are power plants.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name either. He's an engineer.
And I'd love to talk to him because he's got some really, really interesting theories on all
and maybe
this.
they ended up using it for that or something.
But that's one of the things he points to, is like the chemical battery or the chemical reaction, sort of, because there's traces of chemicals inside these chambers that don't make any sense.
Let me address another thing that you were saying too, just to cover all angles of what you're talking about, in case you heard right. But pyramids actually started by graves called mastabas, and before there was ever any pyramids and somebody would die, they would put them in these things that were just like rectangular sarcophagi looking things, right? And they called them mustabas, and that's an Arabic word that means bench, because they looked like a bench, right? You could sit a bunch of people on them and shit. They weren't real tall, and they would put these things together in a square, and then when they would run out of space, they would put them on top, right?
Okay.
And that's how they got the idea to start making pyramids, was by stacking these mustabas together. And in the history of pyramids, the earliest pyramids are step pyramids, the oldest ones that we know of.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to stack shit up without having it fall over or be easily prone to being blown over or any of that
and
kind
then
of stuff.
Chronologically comes what's known as the bent pyramid, which is where they tried to make a pyramid, but they got the sides wrong and it collapsed in on itself. They abandoned in that, and then they made the first true actual pyramid, which was called the Red Pyramid. And then from there on, it was game on, until game over, dude, when that died out in their culture because of people robbing these things. Because they were essentially protecting them with mud, bricks, and stone and spells, right? Which could be chiseled through and ate away through, you know? And so they would go in and take stuff, so they stopped.
Yeah, but they were around for a while before this kind of stuff would happen to them. But there were dynasties that would come and go based on agricultural climate issues, like
and whatever that made them come. War, all that stuff. Yeah, there's a long history of them making pyramids and putting people in it and stuff. And there's some that have been totally taken away and reused for more modern structures and stuff. Like there's one they call the Lost Pyramid, which they have found most of it, like 90% of it, in a nearby town, in people's houses, a block here, a block there.
Well, they just kind of, once the king's gone or whatever, and the threat is gone, then it's pretty soon the vultures start swooping in, so to speak.
And they'll even recommission the stones and stuff. So it's
why wouldn't you? They're already cut to size.
Yeah, and they were already traveled really far. Most of those stones were dug in quarries in Aswan, which is like kind of a little beyond the middle of the kingdom. So they traveled a long way to get to where they were in a lot of cases.
Well, and it was probably for them like it would be for us today if there was some opulent thing that was of a bygone era, you would come in and say, oh, this is the best type of stone because it was in this place of antiquity. So it would be real desirable to have that in your house.
Probably so, yeah.
Right?
And very decorrative with the hieroglyphs.
Gush over that shit, right? I have old growth forest, antique furniture in my home, and all this kind of bullshit.
Come sit on the mastaba in the garden.
This one comes from Futurism. Elon Musk's brain computer startup Neuralink breaks silence. I've been waiting on this.
Waiting to have it manifest in reality, or waiting to read the article?
Waiting on him to say something, because he said when he was on that podcast with Rogan that one of the things that really jumped out at me was his claims about what they were going to be doing with computers here coming up and the interface with humans. And he said, he was speaking about this as if it was some, going to change the world kind of shit. And when somebody like an Elon Musk says something like that, I tend to pay attention.
Yeah, right.
And then nothing happened. And so I've been kind of waiting and waiting and and seeing when this was going to come. But okay, so in 2017, Tesla SpaceX Boring Company CEO, right?
We own all the future.
We own all of your resources. CEO Elon Musk announced he was launching yet another company, this one focused on finding a way to directly link the human brain to computers. I sort of stole the thunder there, didn't I? And that's basically all we heard about Neuralink for 2 years until Musk tweeted in April 2019 that an update from the startup was coming soon. And now we finally have an exact date for when that update will happen. Oh, so this is an update about the update. On Thursday, Neuralink tweeted that it will host an event in San Francisco on July 18th to, quote, share a bit about what it's been working on the last 2 years. The tweet included a link to a page where anyone could apply to attend the gathering, but those who don't score an invite will still have the option of watching a live stream of the event, which Neuralink plans to upload online after it's all over. So when did they say it was going to happen, dude? Did they say?
I don't recall. July 18th, maybe?
Something about April. Yep, July 18th. Okay, well, that's today.
It's today. The future is here.
So from today, futurism, speaking of which, people are begging Elon Musk to drill holes in their skulls.
Their skulls.
Neuralink's Elon Musk's secretive brain-computer interface company came out of a stealth mode to share its progress on live stream Tuesday night.
I like the sound of that. Secretive brain-computer interface company.
Yeah, man.
I want to tell people I work for that.
Cyberpunk type shit, dude. I'm down. I'm so down. The basic gist is that the company, which Musk repeatedly claimed would eventually connect human brains to the internet, has had some success reading the brain activity of lab rats.
We've had some success with lab rats.
Well, that's a cosmic leap to downloading your brain to the internet.
They've got 34 words for cheese. I'm guessing. I don't know what they're reading, but
they're very complicated creatures, these rats. They're like a Gruyere.
They have fine taste.
Some Monterey Jack.
Yeah, the Monterey Jack and Gouda cheese.
Cheddar. Some blue. The company announced that it plans to begin testing its technology on human volunteers in 2020, and people on Twitter immediately jumped at the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Take my brain, Elon, tweeted one person, which is far more than Neuralink would likely need from its volunteers, since it only plans to weave tiny wires into the subject's brains.
We're just going to put
You'll
tiny wires weave through your brain.
You'll be fine. But the enthusiasm with which people responded shows just how exciting the internet finds the combined prospects of brain-computer interfaces, a new Elon Musk venture, and being able to look at memes without using their phones. That's how good the crack is, man, on social media. Is people are willing to have it wired just straight into their brains now.
Phone free.
That's some good.
It's a new age. Phone free.
Good shit, man. Neuralink president Max Hodak told the New York Times that the company would use lasers, freaking laser beams, to drill tiny holes in people's skulls through which flexible circuitry would access their brain activity. The idea is to make the procedure as non-invasive as possible, other than drilling a hole in your
with
brain.
Lasers,
yeah. But that point may have been lost on people who offered to sacrifice themselves in the name of science. Where do I sacrifice myself in the name of science? Oh, yeah, I already said that. Other Twitter volunteers were more cautious, like one who offered up his brain only if Neuralink gets regulatory approval from the FDA.
Only if the government's behind it.
That's it, man. Then I'm down with you putting wires in my head.
Yeah. Who's those guys?
It's unclear why people are offering up their lives and brains on Twitter. Maybe they really want to do their part for scientific progress, or maybe they hope that theirs will be the tweet upon which Elon Musk bestows a coveted reply, granting them a brief moment of internet fame. How do you feel about having laser beam holes drilled into your brain and tiny thin filament level wires, put in there?
I mean, I've had 4 divorces, so I don't really worry about it.
Yeah, it's once you've been shelled or mortared or divorced, right?
Yeah.
It's just all sort of relative.
Yeah, I mean, I
that.
could do it if they're like, hey, you're going to die or you need to have this procedure done. I'd be like, all right, fine, do it. Would I do it voluntarily? Probably not. I'm not this happy with my brain currently.
Or the amount of holes in your head?
Yeah, those are fine. They're useful. I'm hearing and smelling through them and tasting. It seems to be a good deal so far. Nourishing myself, urinating, and such.
Sitting up, taking in nourishment.
Yeah, taking it out, taking it in, taking it out.
Any day above ground's a good day.
Yeah, without wires even.
Without wires, right.
Government approved nanotech.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going, but I don't think that filament wires is going to be able to let you sort of close your eyes and browse the internet inside your mind. I don't know that that's what's going to happen here.
Well, if they do...
Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, if they do, then that whole thing that they showed on The Matrix where you had to have this illusion to believe that things were working out is not true, because we're headed to hook ourselves up to be even lazier than we already are with the technology we have.
Yeah, sort of the dystopian image there was that people were there involuntarily.
Yeah.
And this is sort of pointing at, you don't need to kidnap people or like grow them on a farm.
And
they'll just sign up for this shit if you give them the right stimuli.
They'll sit right in the chair and yell, phone free, and sit right there and blipvert themselves into an explosion or something.
Whatever happened to the whole hysteria around things like internet addiction and like video? Remember when World of Warcraft came out and everyone was freaking about? And I think China actually put a limit, like made Blizzard to have it in China that if you were on for any more than 3 hours at a time, your count was.
That's the first time I heard of porn addiction too.
Was in China?
No, when they started talking about people playing too much online video games or being online too long, like that was the same time I heard about porn addiction. Like I had no idea what that was or how that would happen. But, it was like at the rise of the internet when everybody was worried about the things that people did that consumed their time.
Right.
For some people, that was World of Warcraft. For some people, that was porn. For some people, that was forums and chat rooms and things like that, But all of those things I'd never heard of, that I'd never even thought that was possible. I started hearing like that, being addicted to that weird other world.
But all of those things sort of run their course and became amalgamated into the society, as it were, right?
I mean, the people that did it, nobody cared. There's probably still people doing it that could be considered addicted to those things, but nobody cares.
Do you think like that social media will ultimately sort of has already reached its apex now?
No, not with stories like this that we're just talking about. There'll probably be more new and innovative ways to integrate technology and entertainment to come.
Yeah. And then an algorithm just to feed you the stuff you like or you're interested in.
They're working heavily on it.
How disappointing is television now?
I don't know. I haven't watched it in 7 years. So.
Any kind of program television, because I can just go to YouTube or I can go to Facebook, and the algorithms know me so well. They can just sit and feed me shit that I'll find interesting to look at hour after hour.
Yeah.
It's so bad that the Facebook algorithm now reminds me of articles. It's like, hey, did you see the big article from Big Think? You might have missed that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't.
See, now you're enjoying your commercials. They're functioning for you, and it's like, it's not that bad. It's like having something do what you want it to do. Filter out. There's so much shit out there anyway. You got to filter it out.
This is why I say you can hack the algorithm, and you're really not hacking. It's just understanding the algorithm and making it work on your behalf.
Yeah.
That algorithm that pisses you off all the time can also make you very happy.
Yep.
Or not, you know what I mean? It doesn't make you happy.
It can be useful and
functional. It gives you stimuli that you find entertaining, which makes you happy. But it can do that too, yeah. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom and dread and paranoia all the time. It can be the exact opposite of that, yeah. Like feel-good videos and all this kind of shit. This comes from The Bite, from Futurism. Scientists capture first ever image of quantum entanglement.
Yay.
I thought you'd get it. I think you were talking about this maybe on the last show or hinting at it.
Maybe
it wasn't you. I don't know. It seems like something you would know.
Certainly.
Scientists just managed to snap an image of two photons linked by quantum entanglement, making it the first time that the bizarre phenomenon has been captured with a camera.
That's awesome.
It is a big deal. This is a big deal. The image shows two photons that have been linked through quantum entanglement, which means that they instantly respond to changes that occur in each other, even if they're separated by a vast physical distance. According to research published Friday in the Journal of Science Advances, the first ever photographic evidence of entanglement could help scientists better understand new technology, reports New Atlas, like quantum computers or cryptography. Taking the image was no easy task. According to the research, the University of Glasgow physicists rigged a camera to capture 40,000 frames per second of an experimental setup.
Rigged the camera. Like, hey, give me that Polaroid. We're going to rig it.
Yeah.
What do you mean rig the camera?
You mean the shit out of this bitch,
you
right?
mean built one from scratch to do this particular function? Or did you actually just get a camera and rig it? Like, what do you mean?
No, it's probably not even that benign. They probably have a high-speed camera and some dude had to go over and just turn the knob to 40,000. It goes to 120, so he was three settings back. We're so pessimistic.
Critical. We are. I'm very critical of the wording.
Of an experimental setup that they maintained at minus 30 degrees Celsius in pitch black.
And that's because, 30 degrees Celsius does to keep dissonance from occurring, which is the second law of thermodynamics, all those little particles and cosmic rays.
It gets rid of all the noise, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of what it does.
All those subatomic particles. It's like a soup. And it's that soup that causes the natural collapsation of a quantum wave function. So they freeze that shit and make it stop moving around, so it leaves that wave alone and it stays in superposition for longer. And that's part of the basis of how cytosine plays into Orco-R. Anyway. I just wanted to point out that's why they're keeping it at a low temperature, because I've talked with people about this, and that's why they do it.
They say, quote, "The image we've managed to capture is an elegant demonstration of a fundamental property of nature seen for the very first time in the form of an image." Glasgow physicist Paul Anton Moreau, M-O-R-E-A-U. That's Moreau. Told New Atlas, it's an exciting result which could be used to advance the emerging field of quantum computing and lead to new types of imaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, learning that, there's tremendous implications in things like communication and technology. If you can get quantum communications to work, That's huge.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's enormous.
Yeah.
Now, technically speaking,
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe this would be something for Gareth to talk to me about. But I think you could transmit power that way too, theoretically.
Oh yeah, transmit. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
like,
could absolutely.
Because whatever you impart on one part of the photon is felt on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
So if there were a way to impart that and then also sense it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of what you're doing with, like, if you could vibrate it, you could send if you can vibrate something, you can send a signal across it.
Yeah.
That's all that is.
I mean,
you can turn that into audible information, digital information, whatever you want.
theoretically speaking, if you had two walkie-talkies,
A pleasure device.
Theoretically speaking, if you had a pleasure device, you could automate it at one spot. No,
Yeah, right.
if you had walkie-talkies that was made of quantum entangled particles that made up the atoms of those walkie-talkies, and those atoms made up the molecules, right, of those walkie-talkies, and if those walkie-talkies were simply based on vibration, so that if you spoke into one walkie-talkie, it would vibrate. If it was quantumly entangled to the other walkie-talkie speaker, like you had two cups and a string attached where that vibration would propagate to that spot and you could hear it, and vice versa, you could literally build walkie-talkies that you could have in our star system of Sol, and then say you'd have another one over in Alpha Centauri, which is 4.3 light years away, and you could have instantaneous communication, even though it would take 4 years for the speed of light to transverse that distance.
Right.
And you wouldn't have to have an energy source, and you wouldn't have to have any kind of connection, because the vibrations that occurred...
It'd be like a sound-powered phone like they use in the in the Navy, right? It doesn't have to have power to work.
And it would be entangled, so the effects that would happen quantumly and then subatomically, then atomically, and then on a molecular scale the same things would happen to the one separated that far away. So it would. I mean, that's pretty big deal.
Yeah, imagine playing video games with zero lag. There is no lag on communications of any kind.
No perceptible ones.
But the thing with cryptography is that if you had that walkie-talkie, the only other walkie-talkie that could receive that communication would be its entangled pair.
Yeah.
And there'd be no way to hack those communications. There'd be no way to eavesdrop on those communications.
Yep.
They would be
nothing to intercept going in between.
No, there isn't anything
that we know of, because Einstein called it spooking movement at a distance.
Yeah,
because you couldn't tell what the hell was going on.
Spooky action at a distance or whatever.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, it's strange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I thought you'd get a real kick out of that, man. That's a good article. I think it's huge. I think it's going to have enormous ramifications once they really get this. And then when we get transporters, when we get the ability to digitize, and then that's how we'll move through.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quantum teleportation, essentially. Like, technically, the Star Trek transporters don't convert you to energy and beam you and reconvert you. They simply make a copy of you and destroy the real you.
On the other end, right, yeah.
And then back and forth, so that you're being destroyed over and over again and copied over and over again every time you use the transporter.
Yeah, but the nice thing is if you have like gas, you just transport, and just the copy of you on the other end doesn't have that.
Well, it might. Everything's supposed
Wouldn't
to be.
Wouldn't it be nice if you could just turn a filter on and be like, man,
that would be like a medical thing, right?
Like you just go get hammered and then go through the transporter and you come out the other side sober, and it just sucks all the alcohol molecules. Like it just doesn't send those.
Dude, can you imagine the madness that would ensue in the legal departments in places when they would come out with biofilters that could separate certain quantum aspects of yourself, like taking away a buzz or an alcohol hangover or whatever? Like, can you imagine, especially when you're talking about making copies of somebody and personal domain of self and things like that? I mean, that's the kind of thing in transhumanism that starts to become lost. All those philosophical writers like Locke and Rousseau and all those people that were the foundation of some of the American principles that are based on the ownership of self and that which you work would be in question because of that transient property that would occur in situations like that, and the fact that you could filter things out and literally manipulate somebody on a quantum and temporal level brings into question the very idea of what existence is.
Yeah, because if you can move the essence of individual to something else, then is that the
and who's to decide what
algorithm?
Algorithm, what algorithm and what programmers, and where's the decision factor on such small variables that make up the essence of who we are?
Yeah, we are already gods, except for the wisdom, right?
Yep.
And how do you get wise? You fuck shit up.
Pretty much.
Then go,
don't do that again.
Don't do that again. Astronauts are out, Eric. American kids would rather be YouTubers. Wanting to be an astronaut when you grow up is just so passé. Nowadays, hip American kids are more likely to say that they'd rather be a famous YouTuber, according to a Lego-sponsored survey. Now Lego's doing surveys and polls.
Interesting. They're going to do away with all their rocket sets.
No, it's for the Lego lobby, man. That's a big deal. Yeah, the rocket set.
Yeah, there won't be no more. They'll just be like, I don't know, whatever a YouTube set would be.
They'll be the same color. According to a Lego-sponsored survey reviewed by Ars Technica, the survey, which asked 3,000 children from the U.S., U.K., and China to rank their preferences for 5 different jobs, is an alarming sign of how attitudes toward scientific frontiers have changed across generations.
Well, that's also what gives us this prolific amount of entertainment that we can watch, because everybody can produce and share, and we can consume as we wish. So it's true that things have shifted, and maybe we aren't reaching outward anymore. Maybe we're reaching inward more, but there is a benefit to that we were just talking about.
Right.
Like there's so much, man. I mean, I write and produce music and put that out there, and somebody can come across that, and we do this podcast.
Right.
And people are all the time producing on so many levels, man. Like, not even big levels, or there's people, we've talked to people that have like 80 novels that they've produced. We've talked to self-publishers that's produced a bunch of books, self-publishing, and people who have had agents, and we've talked to musicians. I mean, it's crazy, but yeah, man, people are probably turning more inward, and we are probably losing that exploration feeling, because there's not much more to explore.
Where's the next frontier other than space? There is pretty
there's
much
the quantum,
the inner space frontier,
there's the
for sure.
Yeah, and the quantum realm too. I mean, we're exploring all this inward and small stuff now, instead of this outward and macro stuff, because that shit's fucking far away. And we need telescopes for that, and
really unlikely that anybody from our generation is ever going to set foot on another. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible,
and that we shouldn't strive for
but it sure looks impossible. Yeah, by everything we understand about science and physics today,
including this very article that we're reading currently.
Yeah. American and British kids gave each of the 5 careers the same rankings. Vlogger, YouTuber beat out teacher, professional athlete, musician, and astronaut in that order. Fucking musician. Yeah, man,
they made it to the. They made it though.
Yeah, well, we're not the least interesting.
Yeah,
musician. I say we, like, I feel bad for him. But hey, teacher was number 2. That's impressive, right?
Yeah.
Professional athlete now being number 3, and musician, being 4. But poor astronauts, man. Nobody wants to.
Nobody wants to go in space and die.
They don't want their eyes to get all weird and their brains to take on water. And maybe it's because they're paying attention.
You got to be a badass to be an astronaut, honestly.
But in China, astronaut was the most desirable job, with 56% of respondents saying that's what they wanted to be when they grew up. Meanwhile, YouTuber was the least popular choice at just 16%. Well,
interesting. Now
we understand why they're overtaking the world in everything. Ars suggests,
long as somebody does.
Ars Technica suggests that American kids may not be too jazzed by the idea of becoming an astronaut, because to them, Space travel is old news. Tuesday marks 50 years since the launch of the Apollo 11 missions. That's already come and went. That brought humanity to the moon, and astronauts have been stationed in the International Space Station on a regular basis for years. The survey didn't explore why children responded as they did, but the results are a clear sign that American kids likely don't find astronauts as cool as they once did. Kind of looks that way, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe NASA can start posting some memes.
They need a YouTube blogger is what they need.
No, we need NASA just to stay focused on science. Please.
As everyone heads out en masse to Area 51 due to social media.
That could be some sort of like weird
evolutionary process.
Yeah, like
that's what Cassie was saying.
That might be some like real chlorine in the gene pool kind of shit.
I didn't disagree.
On how that goes down.
It certainly it could be effective in that way, whether it was meant that way or not.
I'm being obviously this is dark humor. I don't want to see anybody actually get hurt or anything like that. But there's definitely a part of my brain that says,
All right, I wouldn't be disappointed if somebody got hurt.
Oh,
but,
no,
I don't.
Dude, no matter what this turns into, it's going to be like watching a train wreck. It's going to be fascinating to watch it play out.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to feel bad about somebody getting hurt when it seems like such a bad idea.
20 years from now, there's going to be people sitting around going, dude, it was Woodstock, it was the event, and then it was, Alien 2018. That was the show, and you were too lame to be there. 2019, whatever the fuck it is, whatever year this is. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be like, because people that with all, Woodstock's just going to be another music festival and didn't go, and it turned into this enormous thing, right? This is what this is going to end up being, right?
Yeah, except there's a classified government base there.
I can tell you, especially the ones in the desert, the ones I've been to are fucking boring. They're just big chunks of pavement and land. There's like nothing there. So I've been to the one in Fallon, Nevada, because we went out there and tested stuff. I mean, not tested stuff. We went out there and trained pilots and stuff how to drop bombs and that kind of shit.
So I guess this is predicated on the idea that if there was something there, these people that's going out there must believe that the government's not in realization of them that they're coming out here going to move that stuff, right? They must be expecting them to. Well,
remember that the original post was done as a joke.
Yeah, but if it happens, the people, if real people show up,
there's not going to be anything there but trouble.
For sure. They must be if they are showing up to find aliens, they must believe that the government's not going to shift them out of there at the last minute, but they're going to stay and protect them.
In the 6 weeks from when they announce it, or whatever it's going to be, 3 months ahead of time, they're just can't get the top secret stuff out of the way so that they wouldn't find anything if they did storm the place, right? Yeah. None of this makes any sense. That's why it's more of a joke than anything else. What would you find? You told them the day you were coming months in advance or whatever it is here, right? It is. It's literally months in advance.
So if they show up, they must believe it's still there and that they're going to try to protect it. So they must be expecting danger at the very least. Because if they're not expecting it to be moved, they're probably expecting it's going to be guarded. So they must be expecting to have a resistance if they're thinking. Maybe I'm really thinking about this way more logically than anyone that's going has thought. I don't know. But it sounds like if they don't, it's like, if these guys don't back down and these guys don't back down, there's going to be some of these people that if they do show up, they're going to want to try to push something because there's going to be a lot of cameras and shit out there. And, and
if anything actually comes of it.
Yeah, if anything does. If people show up, they will be the type of people, I would think, that might push the issue thinking that on camera, on national TV, nothing can happen to them. Nevertheless,
they did not watch the raids on Waco, Texas. They
maybe not Ruby Ridge, Waco, Texas, maybe not. Right? Either one or any of those kind of things. Right? No, But that didn't stop the people at Ruby Ridge, and it didn't stop the
shouldn't
people at
say
Waco.
that.
And
the Illuminati overlords just sent me a text and said the official
talking about that
story
stuff.
there was the fire was started inside, had nothing to do with
tear gas or anything.
The tear gas or the tanks knocking holes in the wall.
Yep. ZZ Top was not there, as was reported. That's their hometown, Waco.
Waco. Well,
Yeah.
it's George W. Bush's hometown. He lives there too. Yeah. And there's a real famous like home fixer-upper show, the Gaineses or whatever. My wife watches that all the time. It's from Waco.
Also on all cans of Dr. Pepper. That's one of their big bottling canning factories.
For Dr. Pepper is in Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
The things you learn listening to this show, Eric. All right, this is going to be like one of the last serious ones, and then they're all going to get weird after this. Okay.
Okay.
5 couples agree to CRISPR their babies to avoid deafness. This is also from Futurism. This seems to be a theme here. This is good articles this week. Denis Rebrakov wants to use CRISPR to create more gene-edited babies, and he already knows who their parents might be. In June, the Russian biologist told Nature he planned to gene-edit human embryos and then bring them to term. To date, only one person, Chinese scientist He Jiankui. Does that sound right? That's that guy in China that disappeared.
Oh.
Right. Has ever openly produced gene-edited babies, with the claim that the edits would prevent the babies from inheriting their father's HIV. On Thursday, Rebrakov told New Scientist he has 5 pairs of Russian parents eager to let him gene-edit their embryos for a different and socially loaded person. That's a weird way of saying that. For another socially loaded reason. Sorry, I misread it. That's why. To prevent the offspring from inheriting their parents' deafness. Rebrakov told New Scientist that each parent interested in his study is deaf due to mutations in their GB2 gene. When 2 people with those mutations reproduce, the child is guaranteed to be born deaf. By using CRISPR to edit 1 copy of the GB2 gene in a fertilized embryo, Rebrakov believes he'll be able to grant the parents' wish to have a biological child that isn't deaf. If Rebrakov is going to move forward with using CRISPR on human embryos, and it seems there's nothing anyone outside of Russia can do to stop him, this use of CRISPR is potentially more justifiable than his arguably unnecessary attempts to prevent HIV. I think he's supposed to say his. Quote, it is clear and understandable to ordinary people, he told New Scientist, each new baby for this pair would be deaf without gene mutation editing. Also, unlike he, who acted without first consulting Chinese authorities, Rebrakov, it was he, not his, he, the guy from China. They're talking about him. Who? Who's on first? Rebrakov plans to reach out to the Russian government in a couple of weeks to ask permission before beginning his controversial CRISPR experiment. So that's what you said. So that's what 6 we know of off the top of our head now, right?
Pretty much something like that.
So it's
5 or 6.
This is the genie's out of the bottle on this. Then this is the thing. Gotta.
There's the mosquitoes. They released them to the wild and they genetically altered. There's the monkeys. They turned on the human intelligence genes,
right.
And when it left into the wild, there was the bacteria that ate plastic that they genetically modified, and there was whatever we were talking about.
The Chinese, right? Did you say that already?
Yeah, with the bacteria that ate.
No, the Chinese did gene-edited babies, too.
Oh, yeah, there was that. Yeah, so that was 4.
That's he. Who? He.
Yeah, he. And then this guy would be 5.
Yeah, so it's
cuneiform.
And that's
on a stela.
That's the ones we know about. I brought up the next article. You get all excited because you see the picture over there.
You see cuneiform. It looks pretty. It looks neat.
It's writing they did with triangular-shaped sticks pressed into mud, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of and then the different symbols mean different things.
Mm-hmm. It's the first writing developed in human history that we know of.
This comes from Big Think.
Woo.
AI is translating messages of long-lost languages.
Nice.
MIT and Google researchers use deep learning to decipher ancient languages. There are about 6,500 to 7,000 languages currently spoken in the world, but that's less than a quarter of all the languages people spoke over the course of human history. That total number is around 31,000 languages, according to some linguistics estimates.
Like Linear B.
Huh?
Like linear B, we would talk about that in class a lot.
Leonard B.
No, linear B. There was linear A and linear B, and it was Greek script. It was like the difference between the Greeks and I believe it was the Minoans.
Okay.
So that's
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, one we still haven't figured out, I don't think.
So the second one is like, what is it, just the much older shit or something?
I believe some Minoans.
Yeah.
If it was the Minoans, it
Yeah,
was
it would
a lot
be, wouldn't
older. Yeah.
Every time a language is lost, so goes that way of thinking, of relating to the world, which reminds me of like that Alfred Grzybyski quote that the entirety of the knowledge of a society is contained in its language.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's profound.
It is.
The relationships, the poetry of life uniquely described through that language are lost too. But what if we could figure out how to read the dead languages? Researchers from MIT and Google Brain created an AI-based system that can accomplish just that. There's all these people in linguistics programs and shit around the world going, shit. Because you're just going to be able to like take a picture and
That's
Google
possible,
whatever. It's
yeah.
going to go, here's what it probably says.
Years and years of studying something.
It's gone. It's written into an algorithm now. While languages change, many of the symbols and how the words and characters are distributed stay relatively constant over time. Because of that, you could attempt to decode a long-lost language if you understood its relationship to a known progenitor language. This insight is what allowed the team, which included a bunch of people whose names I can't pronounce from MIT and Google's AI lab, to use machine learning to decipher the early Greek language Linear B.
Yeah, cool.
From 1400 BC, and a cuneiform Ugaritic early Hebrew language that's also over 3,000 years old. Linear B was previously cracked by a human in 1953. It was deciphered by Michael Ventris, but this was the first time that the language was figured out by a machine. The approach by the researchers focused on 4 key properties related to the context and alignment of the characters to be deciphered: distributional similarity, monotonic character mapping, structural sparsity, and significant cognate overlap. I don't understand any of that. Do you?
Yeah, some of it. Distributional similarity is
like characters being used over and over again.
Yeah, that are like, there's more consonant than vowels in our language, so we can identify us. If we didn't know the symbol of them, we could identify probably that which ones were consonants and which ones were vowels due to how they're distributed.
Okay.
Right? And then the monotonic character mapping, I'm not sure about that. Structural sparsity.
Yeah, like how often things are used and how little things are used. That makes sense. Because if you're going to look at similarity, you're going to look at stuff that's unique.
Yeah.
And that's going to have a weight to mean something as well, right?
Yes, and I think the cognate overlap is if there's symbols connected with words, like if they draw a cow and you can find a word in a sentence written under that picture that can be identified with that concept.
Yeah, they need like the Dr. Seuss books from that time.
Yeah. So, kind of neat, man.
They trained the AI network to look for these traits, achieving the correct translation of 67.3% of Linear B cognates, words of common origin, into their Greek equivalents.
Ooh.
So it kind of seems to work, huh?
Yeah.
What AI can potentially do better in such tasks, according to MIT Technology Review, is that it can simply take a brute force approach that would be too exhausting for humans. They can attempt to translate symbols of an unknown alphabet by quickly testing it against symbols from one language after another, running them through everything that is already known. Next, for scientists, perhaps the translation of Linear A, the ancient Greek language that no one has succeeded in deciphering so far.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat, huh?
Yeah, it is.
It's all, man, like it's like you were talking about a couple shows ago about how there's an app that you can just take a picture of a plant and it'll go, hey, that's poison ivy, dumbass, or whatever, it'll tell you what it is. It's getting to the point we can already translate known languages on the fly. It was really cool when I did a job with a gentleman from Italy, and we had like these really deep conversations and stuff. And when we'd run into words that he didn't understand, or he was trying to tell me something he didn't know the English word, he would just type it in Italian and then show me the word, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. And then I was doing the same thing. Cool. So even though he spoke English, because, he was raised in Europe and they learn like multiple languages, but even though he spoke English, when you really start getting into kind of a nuanced, because we were sitting watching machines run for 8 hours a day with basically, we were looking at a laptop waiting for something to happen kind of stuff. So we had these like really great conversations and so it was kind of neat having that. I was like, wow, this is so powerful now. Because before you just get frustrated and be like, I don't know what the fucking word is. Or you'd use something that didn't quite fit to kind of make it work.
Yeah.
Now you can just look this stuff up. But this is kind of the next level of all of that, right?
Yeah.
It's taking it to the next level. It can decipher.
It's neat. I know that I've seen a lot of translation devices that they've brought out that just work in real time too now that they have.
Like you just talk into it, and then it just turns right around and reprojects what you said in another one. Yeah, I see those ads all the time. Like for these girls, they're like in Japan, and they're asking this little device something, and then it spits it out in Japanese or Korean, wherever they are.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like a Kickstarter thing, and that thing doesn't actually exist per se yet.
I don't know. I'm not totally sure, honestly. I've heard of those things. I've been seeing them. People talking about those things. I don't know if maybe I was catching Kickstarter.
Yeah, like an ad that's showing you what could be kind of thing.
Yeah, just kind of seeing it around here recently that that they've been using those things. And I don't know in what capacity. Be interesting to look into though.
Yeah, let's see what that turns into when it comes out. I think it's very possible, man. Memory's getting smaller, processors are getting smaller, everything's getting more and more concentrated.
And they got Siri and things like that you can talk to and have conversations.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that has to maintain a connection to the internet. Because that's where most of the computing is done.
Yeah.
And if it's not like you're going to take this thing and go wandering the hills of some country and feel confident that you can talk to anybody, because like once you get but I think that there's going to come a time when you could, like with GPS, you can load maps. Like you're going to be able to load the languages of wherever it is you're going, and they'll fit.
That'd be neat.
There'll be enough room in the device for it. And once you can store all that locally, then the translation will become instantaneous because there won't be any of that communication lag.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Way too far down the hole on.
No, it's really neat.
This is from Futurism as well. Mexico wants the United States to decriminalize all drugs. Mexico's new president has a plan to decriminalize all drugs, and he's hopeful the U.S. will follow his lead. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, I probably murdered it, Obrador, recently released National Development Plan for the 2019 to 2024, asserts that the international war on drugs has failed. I agree. In light of that, he believes it's time for Mexico and other nations to lift bans on illegal drugs. It's a bold plan that could signal a new era in drug legalization or invite international ridicule. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's gotten the message, but the war on drugs is over and drugs won. We got our ass kicked. Treat, don't punish. The new plan suggests redirecting any money currently spent on policing illegal drugs toward programs to help users get clean and rejoin society, a position that's already being lauded by many drug reform advocates, including Maria McFarland Sanchez Marino, the executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance. Quote, Mexico's president is rightly identifying one of the major drivers of violence and corruption in his country. True. The prohibition of drugs. She told Newsweek the next step is to translate words into action by pursuing both a domestic and international agenda of drug policy reform grounded in respect for human rights.
I mean, I have a hard time imagining that they would be okay doing that. But
who, Mexico?
No, the United States.
Oh, yeah, it'd be tough. There's a lot of money made off of this stuff still, too, man. You just don't.
Well, there's still things that's like, like I can't imagine them allowing something like meth to be legal.
Well, no. Okay, so that's a real common misconception. So let's go back up here to the top because the language matters. Mexico's new president has a plan to decriminalize all drugs. That doesn't mean making them legal. Mm-hmm. That isn't and a lot of people go, well, if it's decriminalized, then it's legal. No, that's not what that means. So what it means is if you're caught in possession of them, they don't put you through the criminal justice system. They put you through a different system that helps you transition So they're taking the money that's spent on incarceration and punishment, and they're spending it on rehabilitation and trying to find ways to reintroduce people back into society.
I see.
So it's not that it's
That
legal.
doggone political jargon.
Yeah. Well, that's what gets everybody hung up, and a lot of the people that don't read past the clickbaity headlines, and they lose their shit over the language. But it's not like that you're going to be able to just drive to Mexico and buy meth. It's not like you can't do that now.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't care or lose my shit, because like it's not like it. I mean, people do it. That's why there's like a problem.
There's already,
like people do it too much all the time.
There's already countries that have done this, right? Portugal did it.
Oh yeah.
And they're basically like turning their prisons into like they're selling their prisons off to private industry and turning the buildings into other things like bed and breakfast, hotels,
right?
Weird sort of hotels and shit. But
very
because
secure
they
hotels.
basically emptied their prisons out, and the country is, even though they're paying for rehabilitation and medical, they're saving so much freaking money that it's actually been a cost positive thing for them.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of a neat. So yeah, it'd be interesting if Mexico did that. Man, I know that they're legalizing cannabis.
In Mexico?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was illegal in Mexico.
Yeah, big time.
Really?
Yeah, all drugs are illegal in Mexico. Yeah. But now you can walk in and basically buy pretty much any prescription drug you want. I'm probably saying that a little too broadly, but it's very easy to get prescription drugs in Mexico, like super easy. But it's legal, right? So there's a lot of drug tourism that happens down there just because their medical laws are a lot more relaxed than they are here.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Shifting tide, some of that reform is already happening north of the Mexican border. States are legalizing cannabis, not just for medical purposes, but recreational ones as well. And just this week, Denver residents voted to decriminalize psilocybin, the trip-inducing compound found in magic mushrooms. Still, at the federal level, the U.S. still seems largely committed to prohibition, and it might take more than the words of a new Mexican president to change that. Yeah, I'm going to go say that's probably true.
We all should do this. Go.
Well, it's really kind of interesting how being alive at this time and watching all this shit sort of pan out, even on a global scale. There's a lot of stuff changing, especially around drugs and prohibition everywhere. It's kind of catching fire.
Do you have any articles about parallel universes?
Not on deck, man, but
Well,
I'll start looking for those.
Well, no, I was caught an article where they said that
I'm talking about CERN here with the...
that's what I would suspect, right?
Okay.
They said that the article's big lines said proof of multiple universes, has been found. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe they're talking about that stuff with the Large Hadron Collider out at CERN Labs, right? And I look at the article, and it wasn't at all. And it was kind of disappointing, but they were talking about the microwave background radiation of the universe, and there's a spot in it, and it's called the cold void. It's like the coldest spot in space, and it's a little colder than it should be. And they theorized that the reason why it was colder than it should be, because prior to this, the reason why was it was just kind of an anomaly or a fluctuation that just seemed to occur because there it is, right?
Right.
But these other people were saying that it was because we had a brush with another parallel universe, and that's why that cold void was there.
So it's just an assumption.
It would seem.
And they're saying that this definitively explains that, and that's the only possibility?
Yeah, and I wish they would have went into more details, because my assumption was that they were saying that because there was a brush with a parallel universe at that spot, that it sucked the energy out of that spot, making it a colder void place, right? Today in the microwave background radiation.
Okay.
But again, I can't figure out how they're extrapolating that there's these multiple universes and parallel U's, which the article said, based on the idea that there's a cold spot in our microwave background radiation.
So it's just, there's a lot of that kind of, anytime something new comes out in science or physics, there's a whole lot of bandwagon jumping on it. And we see that a lot with like cures too, and this medication prevents lung cancer, and like and then you find out, well, it's prevented it in this small group of lab rats.
If things like that exist, I think it's more on the quantum level in terms of dimensions. There's also an article I read recently where they were talking about Klein jumping, which is where these subatomic particles are able to go through really dense materials by quantum tunneling. Through the material. They arrive on the other side faster than they should. And one of the materials that lent itself to having this happen with this Klein tunneling was the graphene.
Graphene, yeah.
It was graphene.
Yeah, it's like a room temperature superconductor.
Yeah, and it was one of the materials that almost promoted that to happen.
Right.
So it was interesting because, they Klusa-Klein models were the first models that talked about there being dimensions that were rolled up inside of our own that were like smaller than a Planck length.
Okay.
But that there was like a really small space that occupied the larger space. And this is probably like the first evidence they've directly had of proving that these like pocket dimensions exist, because it allows these things to travel through these dense materials at a quicker pace. So I don't know. I didn't know if you'd seen that or not.
I haven't, and I follow a lot of the graphene stuff for sure, because that stuff just fascinates the shit out of me.
Yeah,
I did see.
Look up Klein jumping later on or whatever.
We'll have to bring that one on the show for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff. I actually got to work with a company called American Superconductor way back when they were like first started creating this stuff that you had to put in. It had to be. It was cryogenic. They were still making it happen, and I can remember the physics of some of the stuff the guy was telling us that superconductors would allow. And one of the things he showed me was it was an electromagnet. It was like a handheld electromagnet. It was probably, I'd say it's about the size of like a kid's lunchbox, kind of. It was because this is like a graphite derivative that they made the superconductor out of. That's about all I know about it. But he was telling me, he was like, you see the supermagnet? Yeah. He goes, well, this at full power? I go, yeah. He goes, you could suck every nail out of your neighbor's house at 100 yards. I was like, Jesus Christ. Because when you have something that superconducts, it can take a tremendous amount more energy without heating up and melting down, right? So you can put a lot more energy in a much smaller space also for things that superconduct.
Nice.
So there's profound kind of those kind of physics sort of
leaps in physics
that you get right in size and the size of processors, and I mean depending on how you would produce this stuff, but
or at least leaps in how you control physics. I
had a conversation with a buddy of mine that was an engineer, and I was talking to him about all the breakthroughs that's happened with graphene and a lot of the things that's happening with the material science that way. And
I thought of you when I read that stuff.
He thought I was lying to him because I was explaining to him. He's like, a sheet of graphene, the thickness of a piece of paper, like a tablet paper that you write on, I think is the thickness they said. You could stand an elephant on a pencil on top of it, and it's still a point as sharp as a pencil. You could stand an elephant on top of it, and it still wouldn't puncture it. That's how just ridiculously strong this stuff is. It's almost like diamond in some ways in the strength and stuff.
Well, I mean, diamonds are carbons just rearranged differently on an atomic level.
And this is just like perfectly aligning them so that you get the absolute, and you can make it, and it's one of them theoretical materials that you can make one atom thick. So it's really just exists two-dimensionally.
Like a monofilament whip.
Yeah,
like
it's bizarre. But when you look into the stuff like that they're already putting graphene into, like it's all graphene powder. A lot of it that I see being used in any kind of manufacturing today, and they're using it in the vulcanization process of certain things like rubber
to toughen it.
Oh my God, man! You wouldn't believe how like soles of your shoes that will never wear out, but they're just as soft and just as grippy as any shoes you have today, but they literally don't wear out. So there's like a shoe company that's designing the soles, and then they have like an upper that you zip on and off That's what you replace. You keep the sole and you just zip a new top onto it when the top of it kind of thing wears out. But things like mats that people work on in industrial type applications and this kind of stuff, it's big. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Imagine for a lot of parts for vehicles of different kinds, from
airless tires. That's a thing. That's happening. I think Michelin is like, there's a release date that they're releasing a line of tires. I think it's Michelin that they don't have air in them.
Nice.
And they never go flat.
Punctured,
right. They'll never go flat. So there's all kinds of bizarre. If we can just get through it, man, material science. Some of the shit that's coming in material science is just mind numbing. It's really, really like really kind of paradigm shifting type stuff.
Yeah,
changing the model, change the paradigm type shit. You know, if we don't all kill each other first.
You'll have quantum computers made of graphene with quantum superconducting, superpositioned computing.
Well, I read it. I haven't seen anything else on it, but I did read a white paper. I can't remember what university it was from, where they were using like graphene to transfer energy, the energy from solar panels, say, into a storage device like a battery. And it was done in such a way that they were like increasing the capacity of the solar storage system by like 600%.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane, right?
Because of what's not lost in resistance.
Yeah, in a sense, but it had something to do with the energy being transferred now as a surface event versus a conducted event. And so that the energy, when it actually goes into the batteries,
you're not lost anything.
There's no loss.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would be like the resistance, I guess, then, right?
Because it's another way of looking at it, but they clear what they were saying was that this was something kind of different versus, like conductivity.
We got to ask Garth about graphene and the electric universe theory.
As
well as Area 51.
Oh, no. He ain't going to come on here and not talk about
this stuff.
The electric universe stuff and that kind of stuff. I would hope not, man.
Well, I mean, as it applies to graphene, given its nature with electricity.
Yeah, it might be worth talking about for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know very little about the electric universe theory.
Then the stuff they're talking about, and what you'll see, man, is a lot of this stuff that they're talking about is very much on the cosmic scale, like huge level type things, and it's taken me forever to even get to a point where I think I kind of understand what they're talking about, because there's so many facets to it. I'm getting better about it, like I'm kind of seeing how it all connects together, but there's just so many, and the way that it was brought to me originally was like by Sherfu, and then by Neil Thompson, Ramon Carriaga and Neil Thompson, but it was very much from like the historical, how it ties into the major archetypes and the historical events of things that were sort of prophesized as legend, but that they actually think has some meat to what people were seeing in the sky.
I see. Okay.
So I didn't really come at it necessarily from like an electrical physics sort of angle. I was seeing how there's all these different facets that sort of tie into all of this, that they find that the theory overall has an enormous amount of merit and substantiation.
Gotcha. Okay.
But none of these individual things have necessarily been attributed to that per se in mainstream archaeology or science or anything yet. So in that respect, this is very much sort of a new kind of a theory. But I find what they're saying and why they're saying it to be very logical and very compelling for the most part. It's funny, I was talking to Sherfu about this actually, and because he was like, how do you feel kind of about this? And I think it's fascinating. Like, I really like it. I don't see it as any kind of pseudoscience or anything like that. I just think it's just it's a currently sort of evolving theory. And I think just like anything else, there's going to be parts of it that are going to be proven true, and there's going to be parts of it that's probably not going to be proven true. But that's how discovery works, right? You create a hypothesis and then you test it. And these guys all seem to be very committed to actual sort of scientific research, not just sitting in the garage, But there's the garage science in it, But yeah, he was sort of asking me sort of how, where I come down on all of this because of that, because, it's like even inside of this, there's garage science. There's stuff that's going on that's not necessarily, that not everybody even in that community agrees with. It's just because you got the hat doesn't mean that everyone believes what you're saying or agrees. So, but it's fascinating shit, man. It really is. That's why I've done so many freaking shows on it with those guys.
I've tried to catch up on some things, but I have not completely caught up on everything.
You can't. There's no way, man. I mean, same thing with like videos people send me and stuff now. It's like, I just apologize, and I do it on the show too, because like, look,
I'm mostly just talking about the stuff you sent. So I mean, I only have probably as much as you got being sent to you.
Bro, you're getting like the diluted version of what people send me.
I still can't keep up.
Oh, it's crazy. It's insane. And then I got to find stuff, to put on here, and then we're trying to line guests up, and then I got to work a job. Like it's there's no way I could keep up with all of it. So I don't even try.
Yeah.
I look at if looks like something I might be interested in, I'll check it out sometimes. But I certainly don't want to put it out there that everybody should be private messaging me videos of shit, because I'm not going to see them.
There's been I've seen an increase in the amount of articles talking about chameleon gravity and quantum gravity too. Seems like there's kind of a resurgence of older theories going around again.
There's some wishy-washy shit happening when it comes down to that discussion, right?
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say wishy-washy, but I mean, I don't think the science is necessarily...
Highly debatable.
Highly debatable, yeah. But,
yeah, definitely.
But I tend to agree, because like I think it's one of the premises of the Electric Universe guys is that gravity is being attributed with far more than it actually does. Like gravity is an actual thing, but there's also this other piece that has a lot to do with why things in space are attracted to each other and all this kind of stuff, right? And they believe that there's an electrical component to it that gets written off into just being gravity. So that's what I mean. Like all of this kind of like, I don't know, we know what gravity, we can measure gravity, we can predict it, but we can't reproduce it. We can't create it. So we know how to measure it. The
closest thing we have is Maxwell's equations between magnetism and light is probably weirdly enough the closest mathematical certainty we have to that.
There's a lot of physicists days gone that Birkeland currents. They talk a lot about these things called Birkeland currents. And that was a physicist that had come up with sort of this explanation for why certain things acted the way they acted, and then was sort of in the same time frame of, say, like an Albert Einstein or somebody that rose to prominence, so that their theories sort of were the ones that were explored, and these other theories were sort of shelved. And because everything was going this direction, and now that hasn't panned out, these guys are sort of backing up and going, well, maybe somebody else had the right idea, and going down those roads, those logical, thought experiments to see if any of those theories have some more merit.
Did you hear about the pyramid, the little mini pyramid that was found on an island, the mini pyramid island off the coast of Greece?
Well,
yeah,
They found human skulls in it that were like super, super old.
No, but that was a cave in Greece, and they found a Neanderthal skull and a Homo sapien skull, and it puts people in Europe back by like 150,000 years.
That crazy way back, right?
Yeah. So there's that too that they found in Greece, but they also found an island that was like an artificial pyramid island that had recently been discovered and stuff. Another one of these sort of water archaeological related off the coast situations.
It's currently underwater, but at some point it was an island. Is that what you're saying?
Now it's not underwater, but it was. It's part of the I think they called it the cyclic island chain, which is named after, like, I believe, like Cyclops. It's a derivative of that word. But
that would kind of make sense, Greece and all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and they have Cyclopsian walls too, which are like an architectural feature in ancient times. But these island chains are called that, and it's a derivative of that word, if I remember correctly. And they're like an island chain that I believe in the southeast of the mainland.
Okay.
But yeah, it was interesting. They found it, and it was like it dated back pretty far, and it represented that way earlier than they thought. They had a pretty sophisticated political system, and how they organized and did things and stuff. It kind of turned their clock back too, which really goes hand in hand with the skull that they found in the cave in Greece, which speaks to people being in Europe far longer than we thought too. It also helps explain certain things, like when I've talked about before and wondered about before how there was such a proliferation of the Gaia figures that go from Siberia to Australia.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the token system that was in place before cuneiform, even there was like this token system, and it was these tokens that people traded and carried around, and they had symbols and pictures on them. And there, we have a lot of examples of them, but there were so many, and it was in place for so many hundreds, like thousands of years before writing became available, that there's a lot more than we have, and we don't know what they mean or how other people knew what they mean.
Right.
But just knowing that people were there for so much longer makes that a bit more understandable. Right. And also too, that pyramid that they found was built within 200 years of like pyramids and Stonehenge and all, it came up around the same time that all of those did when people
So this doesn't look like this is something that looks like it was made by primitive people.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So you might look at it and not even recognize that that's
yeah,
what
apparently
it is.
that was the problem for a while. It was really like a recently discovered thing. And and also that they suggested that there was that it helped establish the idea that at some point in time, because these places were connected through trade, that certain ideas washed over these cultures really close within a 200-year period. These ideas of building in megalithic structures and stuff, like it helps show that for whatever reason, this was a big deal to ancient man, and we can kind of see how it propagated from one place to another within a given area. And, because a lot of these structures have gained mythological status almost in a vacuum, where the reason, like the reason why Stonehenge was built was an astronomical calendar. The reason why the pyramids were built was for this other reason. The reason why this thing was built was for this other reason, right? And it has its own mythology. Like it's a standalone, right?
Right.
But this helps establish that these things weren't standalone ideas, that this idea of
because they weren't the only culture that were necessarily doing it at that time.
Yeah, and because we can see that they were trading, and that even back in the period of the Minoans, that there was trade between the Mycenaeans and the Minoans and the Egyptians and the people on Crete and all of these other places in the Fertile Crescent through the Mediterranean, the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea and all of that, right? Like the fact that we can see and prove that these guys were trading and had bartering systems in place also shows us that there was good roads laid down for cultural and spiritual ideas to blend and be reiterated into another image in other places, in these cultures' own way of making their own giant monuments, essentially.
It's funny how 20 years ago would have just been regarded as like what they would call an outer place artifact, right, or something like that, because it did not fit so 20 years ago which didn't fit sort of in the accepted model of how things actually happened through history was just disregarded. And I'm at a point, I think we're at a point now where every day something will come out and it'll be like, Bigfoot was having sex with apes. And you'd be like, yep, I believe that shit. Like there's so much that comes out that runs so contrary to what has been accepted sort of, the accepted paradigm. And now it's just, well, what even is that anymore? Because this stuff that's happening in Greece and things that show that advanced civilizations of people doing things, including having things like structured politics and religions, and way before we ever believed that was even reasonably possible.
Yeah.
I just saw something else too. It was like we got to stop giving Neanderthals such a bad rap. Because when we think about them, we sort of have this image in our mind of like Captain Caveman, dragging a club around, club a woman, have sex, all this kind of stuff. It turns out they were a fairly sophisticated group of people of society or a society. They did things, they organized, they had tools, they sort of had a lot of the same humanistic qualities that you would expect even humans today to have.
Oh yeah. We have examples of flutes that were carved out of woolly mammoth tusks.
So they made noise, but which also would imply that they made music.
Well, the fact that it was a flute that had different holes drilled into it and bored into it, and that they would be able to make different notes implies that they had music, not just making noise, but that they had a need for a device that was sophisticated enough to play music on. Otherwise, why would they spend the time carving it?
Way, way back. Right. Drums do.
So we can assume they had rhythm and melody that the Neanderthal people did.
Yeah.
We know that they dug pits and they put meat in it to store the meat, to keep the meat cold. So it was like an ancient refrigerator.
You were the one that told me that tool use is a lizard brain or a lower brain type function.
Yeah.
I wonder if music is too.
It probably is because it reaches the emotions.
Right.
What else? They made jewelry. They made all kinds of necklaces and jewelry. They had art, perhaps, and maybe even invented art.
Right.
And, of course, they were organized and had to hunt and that sort of thing. They had capacity for fire. They were the first people to
stored water and carried it with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neanderthals did in gourds and like sheep stomachs and things. So
they had organized religion. They are our first example of ritualistic burial.
Okay.
We have found Neanderthal burials that have pollens embedded into their bones at the burial site that's not native to the place where the buried is. So they would have had to have taken these plants with intent and kept these plants with them till they went to another place and someone died, and then they threw these flowers in on top of this person that they buried. So like our first burials, our first ritualistic burials and first signs of religion come from the Neolithic people. So there's a lot of stuff like, that, it's easy to see why the humans and the Neanderthals interbred and, not warred.
Well, they had a lot in common too.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I mean, they had a lot of shared interests.
Yeah, definitely.
No doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting stuff, man.
It's a great time to be alive, man, but I don't know what it all means. It means that Elon Musk is going to be drilling holes in all of our brains.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you hear a lot of people worried about the permafrost in places like the Antarctic melting.
In Siberia.
Yeah.
And all this that's happening, too.
With it being like 90-some degrees, because they're afraid of ancient bacteria going to be released and viruses and stuff that hasn't been on the planet for literally thousands of years,
and we have
hundreds of thousands maybe
too, and all this kind of stuff.
Not you normal folk, but these weird guys
that have like monster Neanderthal genes.
Yeah.
So you'll be here, man, but everybody else will be dead.
Yeah.
Well, you'll remember me from the podcast, man.
I will totally be like what's his name in Omega Man.
I don't think I've ever seen
Charlton
Omega.
Heston.
I've seen him. Yeah.
Yeah, just like living it up and enjoying it, playing chess with a bust of Caesar and going shopping in the day and coming back to my compound and stuff.
Right.
There won't even be zombies.
Going out and rounding up all those cans of baked beans and all that kind of shit. Right?
Get those bush baked beans first. Mm-hmm.
Just don't let Duke know you know the secret recipe, right?
Well, and there's other people that have a high content of those same Neolithic genes turned on in their DNA too. I mean, even though I have more than 99% of the people that they've tested, and there's people that have more.
Well, that's kind of what I'm actually hoping is that it won't matter, because the what comes out, we'll just have immunities too. You know?
Right. Hopefully, or modern medicine will be able to defeat them, unlike the undefeatable bacteria that we've created with antibiotics.
No shit, right?
Yeah, they'll just be like, it'll be bad for them. We think it's bad for us, but they're like, holy crap, they've got antibiotics. We should have stayed asleep in the permafrost. It's like when the War of the Worlds, when the aliens came and they died of our germs because they had no natural resistance.
No, it was the water.
Like in Signs.
Right, it was water. They were alert, they couldn't take water, so they came to a planet that's 3/4 covered by.
Well, I'm talking about War of the Worlds, though. You've seen that, right?
Yeah.
Where they die from our germs.
Yep.
Except these bacteria germs are going to die from our antibiotics.
Turns out that our planet is like the brothel of the galaxy, and it's just full of
bacteria just hatching out all the time.
Turns out that's all we really are, is just some sort of weird STD from aliens that went horribly wrong.
In the age of the electronic rapture, after the time of the releasing of the ancient virus, there arose one Neolithic man.
It won't be. It's not going to be when that thing that comes along and wipes us all out is going to be the thing we least expect it to be, though. You know?
Yeah, it's going to be those sex robots you were talking about. People are going to have sex with them and not with real women, and women are going to be like, great,
or men.
Or men. Yeah, but it don't matter with men because they ain't making babies anyways. You only need like 1 or 2 generations of guys having sex with robots before. Then what?
Then what? Yeah.
Like
it's all over.
Yeah, it's like you can't just pop the clutch. Well, maybe, if
like
with genetics,
down the hill and pop the clutch.
You can't just get babies going again if you're 50, or it's not as easy or whatever.
All that old seed putting out them.
Well, and if women are that age too, I mean,
yeah, it's tough.
You know what I mean? Like,
man, you don't even need a uterus anymore, right? We saw that
maybe
article,
not, right?
Where before too long,
maybe CRISPR will save us.
Synthetic uteruses are going to become superior to the actually growing babies inside human beings.
Yeah, that's right. There's that. Yeah, the birthing tubes.
It's like having a kid with none of the stretch marks or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's bizarre, huh?
Yeah, that's great, man.
What do you think, man? You want to keep going? 1 hour and 40 minutes.
What do you got?
I don't have anything else on deck.
You
that
don't
was the
got
articles.
what about in your head? What's in your head?
As little as possible most of the time. I've been writing code, or not writing code, but I've been setting up all the servers and everything for a job that I have to do coming up. So I've been like a week setting up Microsoft SQL servers and Microsoft servers. And so I was really glad to be able to pull some articles together and do this. I literally just finished up getting the servers online and stable. I don't know, maybe half an hour before you got here today.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
I came pretty early today, too.
Yeah, it worked out well. We're recording earlier than we normally do, too. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice when we record and it's still daylight out.
Yeah, that's true.
Because generally that doesn't happen.
I even ate early, too, so I could just come in and
hang out.
Go home. Yeah.
No, I mean, as far as anything going on, it's just, got a lot of work, engineering stuff coming up for my job. Process control stuff, good stuff, fun stuff I like to do.
You get to travel a little bit.
Yeah, so there'll be more pictures going on Instagram of me sitting probably
and Facebook, right?
Yeah, and Facebook,
okay.
Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, I put them on both.
Yeah, I thought so.
I put them on both.
I didn't know if you did separate for separate.
Nah. No, actually the way I do that is I have Instagram just posted onto Facebook and Twitter actually too, so it just kind of hits everything all at once. Makes it, because I'm lazy and I'm an automation engineer, so I try to automate everything.
Oh yeah, right.
I'm the laziest person you'll ever meet. That's why I'm an automation engineer.
You still going to your jiu-jitsu, your Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
No, I'm still on financial hiatus right now. College stuff and trips and family stuff and everything that's been going on has just wiped me out. Yeah, I'm going back. I will go back. I absolutely will be going back to 10th Planet in Newark. I just got to get there.
Yeah.
And we're like trying to buy a house. There's like all kinds of stuff going on, man. It just, yeah, it makes it really kind of, inconvenient to be also trying to fork over money for different memberships and these kinds of things because that's all going into that fund for for whenever we find a place, and
or at least
buy it.
trying to build up from some of these hits.
Good Lord, between the dog and the kids and the college stuff. I mean, it's just there's so many different things that seem to be going on all the time. It's like when your kids turn 18, you think, oh man, I'm all done. No, you're not all done. That's just the beginning of the expensive shit. That's all that is.
Are you going to be using the face aging app?
No.
On Facebook, you're not. Now, is that because you don't want the government to have you? Nope, you just think it's passe.
I just didn't. Was not even remotely interested in it.
Yep.
Yeah. I was like, why is everybody making themselves look old?
I already look old.
I've already looked old, right? You want to see what I'm going to look like when I'm old? Look at my profile picture.
Right.
That's what I'm going to look like. A lot of those face apps type things, because there's other programs other than like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, like WhatsApp, I think is one, but there's these other social media things that have face apps that change your face and can like swap your face and all these kinds of things. And it's just, I don't know. I've just never, I putzed around with like the ones in Facebook, the Facebook app on iPhone a little bit, and made myself look like I was in Kiss and different shit.
But don't you want to hop onto this viral bandwagon here?
Not even a little bit. Yeah, the novelty's gone for me. That's what I mean. It was just one of the things I was like, I'm not even
gone at 30.
Yeah.
The novelty was gone at 30 in terms of how I felt about what I looked like when I was.
But man, that really took off. Like I got up one day and everybody's Facebook old. Status was old. I'm
it
like,
was
what
like
the
that
fuck
old
is
Star Trek, man.
It's bizarre, right?
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
I don't know. Everybody was it was so weird that people were conspiratory about it. They were like saying it was a distraction from anything, pedophilia from Area 51. Area 51
the stuff that's in
was
the news kind of
just
thing.
whatever. Everything was supposed to be a distraction from everything else. I don't know. It was all pretty much distracting. If you ask me, pretty much.
I thought so.
Yeah, it was all very distracting. Everything that was going on at once, from the good to the bad.
It's that there are these things that sort of take over social media.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a putting a flag on your profile picture because something happened. But I used to be really into doing a lot of this stuff. Like, I don't know, I guess you'd call it social media activism of some weird sort or whatever. But I don't know. I just a couple of years ago, I just stopped kind of being into all of this different. So when that came out, I seen a lot of people doing it. It was like, oh, it's gonna be one of them things. It's Pokemon Go or whatever the fuck it. Yeah, it's the latest, whatever. So I'm not a Luddite. It's just that I don't see the novelty isn't there for me to see that. I don't know. So I wasn't interested. And then when all that other shit came out, I'm like, well, there you go. There's when being an old asshole sort of helps you out, Paid off that time.
Man.
Uncool old man,
Yeah, right. Let's see what else has been going on here. I don't know. I lead a simple life,
Well, the Area 51 stuff is sort of dominating my news feed right now.
Yeah.
All the memes, all of the different things that are sort of revolving around that. And then so first day was seeing everybody old. The second day was how everybody who did that to themselves just gave some sort of weird galactic permission to the Russians.
To the Russians, yeah. I'm like, man, if they want to put my fucked up face on a billboard in Russia, even after I'm dead, more power to them, man. I don't care.
I saw all that
Good luck selling whatever you're trying to sell.
I saw all that stuff coming out on social media. I told my wife, I said, the reaction of people on Facebook to this, some of people's reaction to this about, like the privacy concerns and all that on Facebook are not consistent with who they actually are in the real world. Like, it's like you're far more concerned about this than your position in life necessitates because, if you're country Bob who, whatever.
That made yourself look old.
And I shouldn't even pick on it. Like if you live in a major metropolitan city, but you're like a janitor or you're, you know what I mean? I'm not saying these people are insignificant. I'm saying they're insignificant to anybody that would want to steal their identity per se, compared to other people. You know, so I'm not trying to disparage anyone, but there's a lot more people more upset than they probably should be, considering who they are.
And
like you and me, for instance, it wouldn't fucking matter.
No, the best you could hope for is you found yourself on vacation in Russia. and you did find your face in a magazine on some ad or the picture you took, and they're selling whatever. It's like that would be kind of funny.
Right.
I would get a chuckle out of that, right?
But
I wouldn't be offended. I wouldn't give a crap about the money or,
all of a sudden a photo of my ugly fat face is going to make some company sell the next bajillion dollars or something. I don't think so.
I don't know.
Like
maybe in a negative way, like they're saying, don't end up like this by our product.
Well,
but
it could
still
suck if they put a picture of you out and it's like, this is the face of herpes. Or
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, but you know what, man? If you make some sales off of that, good job.
How would you make sales off of being the face of herpes or whatever?
Not me, but them.
Oh, they could use your face.
Yeah,
to be
I don't care. You make some money off that face. I couldn't.
I remember there was a Friends episode where he was on the subway and this girl was chatting him up and she was like, you look familiar. And I think he was like on a soap opera or something. She's like, no, that's not it. And he's talking to her and she looks past his shoulder and on the wall behind him is he had done a photo shoot and they used his image on like an anti-herpes campaign. And then the girl was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, maybe so.
A Friends reference, man. Woo. Reaching back there.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen Harry Potter and you've never seen Friends.
No, but
it might not. For you now, some of the cultural references are a little dated. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Because of when it was produced and filmed and everything back in the late 80s and early 90s, I think, or through the 90s. But it's on like Netflix and shit. You can go back and watch it. I've rewatched them. They hold up okay.
Why would I watch them?
Well, I don't know why you would watch them. It's a scripted comedy, which you hate. But you brought it up. I've never seen them. I thought maybe you were implying, or maybe I'll go back and watch one.
I used to watch Night Court.
I love Night Court.
Yeah, I like
Bull
that.
and
that's scripted comedy.
Yeah, but that was sort of like a WKRP in Cincinnati sort of taste level. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely agree with that statement.
It was very low production value, but the acting and the comedy and the writing in it was really good.
I downloaded all of Gilligan's Islands, but I haven't watched it yet.
Black and Whites too.
Yeah.
So who's the only people
legally
mentioned? Who's the good for you?
Thanks, Matt.
Good for you, man.
Thank you, sir.
For doing legal stuff. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Who's the only people mentioned in the theme song to Gilligan's Island that weren't actually on the island? Ooh, trivia question.
Like the proper name?
In the song for the show, Gilligan's Island, they mention characters in the song. They mention names of people in the song. There are people, there's a person mentioned in the song that actually was never on the island. Do you remember the theme song to Just Sit Right Back and You'll Hear a Tale?
Right, and they go, fateful trip that started from this docking port aboard this tiny ship.
Right.
The mate was a mighty sailing man, the skipper brave and sure.
Yep. 5 passengers that sailed that day for a 3-hour tour.
A 3-hour tour?
Right.
No, you're supposed to say a 3-hour tour.
The weather started getting rough. The tiny boat was tossed. If it not for
the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost.
Yep. And then it goes through and it says
the ship struck shore and something.
Some deserted desert isle.
With Gilligan.
Yep.
The skipper too. The millionaire and his wife.
Right.
The movie star, the professor, and Mary Ann here on Gilligan's Island.
Okay, so who was mentioned in the song that's not actually on the island?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you because the suspense will kill you.
Yeah.
So at the end of the show, there's a continuation of the theme song.
Okay.
And in the end of the show, he says, no boats, or was it no motor cars, not a single luxury.
Yeah.
Like Robinson Crusoe.
It's primitive
as can be. Yeah, that's the only person mentioned in the song that wasn't actually on the island.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of a gotcha. And I didn't come up, don't trust me, I didn't come up with that. Someone hit me with it because I watched Gilligan's Island religiously as a child. I loved it. Even the black and white ones.
So join in here each week, my friends. You're sure to get a smile.
Yep.
from Seven Stranded Castaways. Here on Gilligan's Island.
Here on Gilligan's
I wonder who made that, actually.
The song?
Yeah, I wonder who actually wrote that.
I bet you can find out.
Probably. I'm sure you can find out. I just wonder at this point.
That was all the canned laugh tracks and all that kind of stuff, man. Those are really, really tough to go back and watch some of them. But you know what? I shouldn't say that. A lot of those shows from back then still kind of hold up.
I should have got the movie.
There was several movies, right?
I think there's just like one that happened like later on of them getting rescued. I think there might have been two, but I think there's just one.
Right.
There's at least one.
Yeah, I think like because the show was canceled, and I don't think they ever got off the island, and then they made like a made-for-TV special where they buttoned it up.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yep.
But I think it was like years after the show was finally off the air.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But everybody was still alive.
Jesus Christ, man. We're digging deep here if we're talking about Gilligan's Island, bro.
Well, you know, people have seen it. Maybe I don't know who's listening.
No, it's on TV Land and all that kind of stuff. All those shows.
Is it still on TV?
Oh, yeah, on TV Land. There's a channel that's dedicated to showing like old television shows and stuff. They have like Hogan's Heroes, like Three's Company, Gilligan's Island, all of those old type television shows that were serials and stuff.
Sitcoms.
I Love Lucy, the Carol Burnett show. You can still watch that.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So it's weird flipping through the channels and seeing that stuff, and then you look at the air date and it's like 1976. Like, oh yeah, I remember those days and big glasses, and everybody had rose-colored glasses and wide lapels.
Oh yeah, disco was burning
Platform
through.
shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy times.
Cocaine was fueling the rise of disco.
Yeah. It's funny how the 60s, the whole peace, love, and end war movement of the 60s devolved into like this cocaine-fueled lust fest of the 70s. And then turned into this weird capitalistic
80s
thing. Yeah.
Just
consumerism just took over. Yeah, it's bizarre. Oh, fun shit, man.
I think that's it.
All right, man. I think we'll end it there.
I think that cocaine high is down and gone, and
You're going to need some coffee.
Oh, no.
Black cocaine. Thanks for listening, everyone. Check us out at www.noshitcast.com. It's KNOWSHITCAST.com.
Check us out.
Yeah, check us out. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
Like us. Subscribe to us.
Give us a rating on iTunes,
We love
etc.
you.
If you like what we do, give us a share. We'd be greatly
Share us.
appreciated. Share us. We love to be shared.
We love it.
And we'll catch you all next time. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bicycles.
Bye.